Hello and welcome to From the BO End Live. This is a special emergency episode of the podcast as we respond to the obvious headline news from yesterday and today that Vincent Kompany linked with the job at Bayern Munich. We are recording this live, so if you listen to this on the podcast on Wednesday morning, you will notice it's a little bit of a different feel because we're reacting to people on YouTube and fans who are sending in questions and so on. But I'm really glad to have a strong lineup here today. We've got Andrew Greaves, of course, who's going to be helping me as well with the questions. Paul Woodhouse in Cleveland, Justin Connolly around Manchester, and from Brussels, Sasha Tavolieri. Is it Brussels, Sasha?
I'm from Liège. It's the southeast of Belgium.
In Liège, of course you are. We talked about that before. Great to have Sasha here with us, who, of course, has been very prominent in many news items around Burnley over the last year or two since the strong connections with Belgium came to life. And none bigger, really, than this story about Kompany and Bayern Munich. So we have other guests coming on later on. We have someone from Germany. That's right, Andrew?
Yep, got Matt Ford, who's a German football expert, works out in there, covers the Bundesliga for Deutsche Welle and the I paper and various things. So Matt's going to join us a little bit later to give us the Bayern German view. But I think we've probably got the strongest lineup. Everyone's announcing their Euros lineup for the TV broadcast. I think we've got the strongest lineup right here tonight.
Yeah. So what we're going to do then basically is talk to Sasha for a while here. Go into the questions around the Kompany situation. Then we'll bring in our friend from Germany, and then the second half of the podcast we'll be talking much more about our feelings and our analysis of what might happen. So let's get down to it with Sasha. How are you, Sasha? You've had an interesting few days with GIF wars and then this news. And
as you can see, guys, I'm truly very tired. I'm working non-stop these kind of last hours. I don't know why, but they decided already to start jumping on each other's for the end of May. They start really quickly right now, but yes, it's massive and it's crazy how the transfer market is going to be this summer, and this is only not the beginning. So this is just an abbreviation of what's going on for this summer. So imagine how big mess it could be.
Yeah, and we've been thinking about what kind of big mess it might be for the club that we all follow, because obviously it's quite a dramatic development. I mean, you tweeted something out a couple of weeks ago, which not all Burnley fans wanted to hear, judging from the reaction, suggesting that Kompany was looking at possibilities outside of Burnley, and that Burnley were looking at their options for how to replace him. Now we're starting to see concrete names mentioned. We've had the Brighton situation, we've had Brentford, and now, of course, this Bayern Munich. So how has this evolved, this situation, do you think?
Yes, of course. I'm happy you noticed this, because a lot of people were a little bit shouting at me, and they were not happy about this news. But I can only remember one thing, is that it's not my personal advice. If it was for me, I would be happy to come at Turf Moor and see Kompany coaching the club and see Burnley win against Man City 4-0. But this is not really realistic. The football and the situation of Vincent Kompany is very different. I truly believe that Burnley is and was the first step for Vincent Kompany to get out from Belgium and get his first opportunity. He got there a club that are not, I would say, afraid of him, but they are too much respectful on Vincent Kompany. So it's not like they could very be angry against them, and there is a sort of power, and energy who is not balanced. And that was the main problem from the beginning, and that's also what could be a problem if Vincent Kompany decided to stay in Championship. What I think it's quite not very realistic from all what we saw for the moment. But if we come back to the news factually, it became in middle of April, starting April, that you saw agents talking about Vincent Kompany, or talking of Vincent Kompany in clubs, that they were looking for maybe a solution and an option. There is something important to say, that in the transfer market, people have to know decisions that are be taken or made and sent, communicated by top medias are already done and also discussed 2 months before. This kind of announcement, like maybe we can think about De Zerbi. The fact that he left at the end of the season is not something they kept in 1 week and then decided in 1 week. It's something they decided for a long time. And when you know how precious, how worked could be the way of thinking the football of Tony Bloom, it's impossible that it's an improvisation coming from one week ago. It's right. Something that just happened. So, due to this work, there are intermediaries in the transfer window that are working for getting solution in case De Zerbi leaves, what is currently happening. And Vincent Kompany has always said, and you can find it, I can send you the sources of what I'm saying, that Brighton was the current club that made him like a perspective to be for Burnley in the future. So a sort of club that they can point out to say, okay, let's go and let's progress with that kind of watching the football and having a perspective. So Brighton is something quite I would say obvious, but fact is that now you see that Vincent Kompany, even if he doesn't have results, he's there. His CV is speaking about him, and he doesn't need to get big results to get opportunities, because he is Vincent Kompany, and that's also the problem where Burnley is coming in. So they are now. I truly believe that they think now to say, okay, we are just Burnley and he is Vincent Kompany. So now, even if he can leave, what should we do, and what do we can do to keep him? And it's like someone who doesn't realize how powerful the person that he had inside the club was for the point of view of the external. You understand? So that's what's currently happening. So now. Yes, of course. You all know it. Pochettino is out. Last summer, I have formal verification about that. Chelsea come in for a Kompany. They tried him to make him sign before he signs the big deal with Burnley. So it can be a solution. I don't know for the moment. I don't have confirmation about the fact that now he can be a solution. I want to be precise. I don't want to announce things, but. He can be someone, of course, because they thought about him before getting Pochettino, that they could be back on him. This is a solution, and of course there is Bayern, and we can talk about it.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Bayern, because that came out of kind of left field for most of us. I think it's fair to say. So, what went on there with Bayern Munich? Was that something that was quite spontaneous, because they haven't. Had so many. They've been looking around for other people, haven't they? It's been quite widely reported. So, is this something that's just come up in the last week with Bayern? Do you think?
I would say Kompany is the K plan. To be honest, they got 7 refusal officials and other people that they didn't communicate the fact they refused, so they rejected the offer. So this is also a fact. Bayern is coming to a point that there is not a lot of possibilities, and in one of those possibilities there is a coach who is called Thomas Frank, who can be, of course, also an opportunity, but who is the third or the fourth solution in Bayern. And into this you have, for me, the number 2 solution of Bayern. So number 1. No one knows it for the moment, but Bayern has a priority, and then they are speaking with Kompany to see if they cannot do this priority. They will do, and they will force the deal with Burnley to get Kompany. For me, he's not the number 1. He's the number 2 at Burnley, and they know that if they didn't reach the deal they can reach as a priority, they will go for Kompany. But it will be, and it will be very quick, because you know the Germans, they can go, they put the money on, they give it to GG Watt, they give it to the investors, they call Alan Pace, and they make the deal. So it can be quick. But fact is that for the moment, yes, I truly believe Vincent Kompany, personally, I don't have confirmation about the fact he called or he got someone from a Bayern board at the phone, but his intermediaries, of course, are currently in contact and making some relancing and so on to try to make the deal, you know. But I don't have any confirmation about the fact he is in contact direct with the FC Bayern board. This is not something I can confirm. What I can tell to you is that Max Eberl is someone that knows Vincent Kompany. So maybe they can be in touch, but I don't have the formal appreciation to say, okay, they have been in touch and they are discussing indirect. No, they are intermediaries and they are speaking through agents. Interest is there. Talks took already place. It's concrete, and what we say to me, and I already tweeted yesterday, is that his profile is defined as attractive and very interesting, due to the fact that Vincent Kompany could be a personality very respected in the squad, due to his career, due to all what he did. So it's a plan. It's not the plan, but it's a plan.
Yeah, Sasha, I'm just interested in the somebody's tweeted us, Andy Barton said, you know, do you know if there's any dialogue between Kompany and Burnley in terms of him telling Alan Pace that he perhaps wants out, perhaps wants to leave and look for another challenge? Or is this just, you know, is this kind of quite normal in terms of there's a lot of big jobs that you mentioned, Pochettino going at Chelsea, and, you know, that might throw another curveball into Bayern's plans if they look at Poch. But do you feel like this is, you know, the end of the relationship? I mean, Alan Pace always described him as the most beautiful girl in town who would eventually leave him. It now feels like he's waiting for a taxi outside, you'll have to forgive the cultural reference, Panama Joe's, which was a big nightclub in Burnley back in the 90s. Is this the end of the relationship from your point of view?
For me, as you all know, I got the opportunity to get a direct contact with the chairman, so I can say that the love that has that guy for a company, I can say that I never saw that before. So it's someone that loves so much Vincent, and I see that he is not talking about someone and that's maybe also that can be a bit insane, you know. But you see that he's not talking like someone who is under him. He's talking like his brother, you know, and you feel it, and that can be a truly problem. So what I can give to you as information formal is that there were no direct contact between the two guys yesterday at 8:00 in the night. So it was like I think 8 or something like night, and there was no contact between Alan Pace and Kompany, and it was just he's on holidays, you know. So I will let him free. This is what I understood. So and I don't have more information from yet. So for the moment there is no contact currently. That wants to say that maybe Vincent just want to get some peace. It's also possible, and Alan just let the company getting this peace. So this is possible also. But for this moment, you can say that you have a really opportunity to get the coach out. But they said to me, and they wanted to confirm it, that they were searching for a coach before, but not a first coach. They were looking for an assistant coach. So
really?
This is something important. So they were looking from someone, but it was not the first coach. They were looking for someone to reinforce Vincent. This is why also all the thing I told you about. He's like, they are like friends. It's because Alan Pace, from what I understand, wanted to Vincent Kompany to be as good as he could, and he was thinking that maybe getting someone from the external point of view to make again the season with another power, another energy, could bring something more to help Vincent to do another season with the Burnley. So this is the current situation, but anticipating has been denied to me. Anticipating the fact that Kompany leaves and getting a head coach, this has been denied to me by Burnley. So this is what I can say. So they are looking formally. They were looking from doing something, but not the thing we said. But fact is that at the opposite, we saw that Vincent was working also by his side without telling to Burnley. This is also what I told to the club, to be very honest.
Yeah. Just on your conversation with Alan Pace, and I don't want you to break any confidences, but did you get a feeling that actually when he sees a tweet from you saying Burnley are looking at Mark Robins and Ashley Cole, that he's genuinely thinking to himself, well, I'm not. And obviously, that's maybe Mark's agent putting some of that kind of stuff around. Do you think there's almost a bit of a disbelief or a kind of, I don't know what I'm trying to say, a kind of, they don't actually believe that Vincent would be in a position to leave? Is the relationship so not disjointed, but so kind of out of sync that they just do not realize that Vincent departing could have even been a thing this summer?
Sometimes that can happen, of course, when you think they are in relation that is more than operational and professional. You think that you have control on the things, but you never, in the football market, you never have control on the things. And fact is that getting to a guy who is a careerist, because we can say it about Vincent Kompany, the opportunity to get Bayern Munich and hoping him to say no, it's like a dream, Yeah. It's like Shirk, it's like DreamWorks. It's not true, it's an anime. It's not the real life. It's because it's logical. That guy, and this is something very important, Vincent as always get a real opportunity of career to say, okay, now I'm in trouble. I did all what I could. I got this sensation with Burnley. I did all what I could. I break the record. I got the club. I tried to make the biggest way of football, the best way of football that I could. It was not with the result as expected, but even I tried to make my best. I tried to build all what I had in my mind into the club. It doesn't work. We fail. Now I have the opportunity to get and to do the same the same journey that my that the guy who I want to substitute in the future, Pep Guardiola, is going to be and is going to do. So getting this opportunity now, it's a more easy way than Pep to do it, but it's all, of course, the destiny of something that can happen in 2025. Getting and taking the legacy of Pep Guardiola at Manchester City. Imagine he won everything next year in Bayern Munich. He entered the doors of everyone, because if you won in Bayern Munich, you are welcome everywhere, and you are even welcome in Real Madrid. You're even welcome where you want. So Pep is getting to leave. This is what I could understand into 2025, and then he is there, and then City can buy his contract at Bayern. But getting and passing the door from Burnley in Championship. Imagine we can imagine that he goes to the Premier League, and after getting to the Premier League again with Burnley, then he signed to Man City. This is not something realistic to think, But if he makes a one season at Bayern, he wants it. He realized what Pep did at Bayern, and then he opens the realistic door to get the successor and enter in the legacy of Pep Guardiola.
Sasha, before I just quickly throw to Justin and Woody if they have any questions for you, just a real practical question, and if you I don't know if you know this or not, but I presume that he has an exit clause in his contract. Is that basically why they don't need to be talking to Burnley at this stage? That he has a direct way out?
You can presume it, but I don't have confirmation about the fact there is a release clause, to be honest. Fact is that, again, Vincent Kompany has so much power inside the club that if he said, I want to leave, everyone will sit down, they will discuss, and they will make the deal happen. Even if Kompany wants to sit on his contract of 4 years rolling with Burnley, he will do it. And they will find a deal and Kompany will leave. That is also the thing with Kompany. He can leave whenever he wants because he is Kompany, you know. And when you take a so powerful person inside your club, you have also to take the responsibilities and also the consequences of what can happen. And once again, we can judge him on the results, Simon. We can judge him on the results. We can judge him on the games. I saw them. So there is a lot of things we cannot say. But all those things are based by the fact it is Vincent Kompany. You are judging, someone else, McKenna, for example, who make absolutely the same results with Burnley. We are not talking about Bayern. But now it's about Kompany, and it's about him, his image, all the network behind him, and so on. So that's why we are in this situation for the moment.
Justin, Woody, any questions you want to pop to Sasha?
Yeah, I was just wondering just how common it is in the close season for managers and clubs to have contact with each other, sounding each other out, wondering whether an opportunity is going to arise here and there. I mean, it is that season of it's part of the season, isn't it, where lots of jobs change hands. I mean, did it happen last season? I mean, Kompany was he talking to other clubs in the close season? Does everybody do it? And we just only find out about the ones that come across your radar?
Yes. What I can say is that everyone is having someone to talk about the clubs during the season. So the fact you say, I'm a representative of Vincent Kompany, I'm not talking about clubs, and clubs are not asking questions about you during the season, is false. It's happening. It's happening about Pochettino. It's happening about Ten Hag. It's happening about all the coaches. This is what currently the market and the transfer window market is. Everyone speaks with everyone. But where it's going to be something that can be considered as a news and then concrete, and where it isn't. This is also the link and the line you have to trace, and you have to see and make the difference between two. You know, this is important. So now what we can say about that situation is that, from what I know from Vincent, he would never talk directly with dirigent by his own and taking his phone and calling him by during the moment he is the trainer of Burnley. He would never do that because he has too much respect, and also he is. I love to say this because I think it's very true. He's a universitary of football. So that guy is just someone who loves to learn, to understand, to know better. He's a control freak. He's a bit like Thomas Tuchel on that point. He loves to control everything, to learn everything, to coach also individually and also in general. He's all his players. So he is absolutely concerned by the project he's building, by the project he's managing, and by all the fixtures he's preparing. So he don't have the time to talk with the other dirigent and so on. But he's talking with a lot of agents, and these agents, he got a big relationship with them. And Vincent Kompany was working with someone, and then he worked with another one, and now I understand today that it was not the same. I was thinking he got the brother of Gundogan as agent, I just got confirmation that it's not him anymore. So he's talking with big agency here in England too. So he is also a big personality that is for Burnley very difficult to handle.
Clearly, yeah. I mean, I mean, from what you're saying, just as a final one, Sasha, really, you've talked about other clubs as well as Bayern. I mean, it's possible, and we're going to talk to Matt Ford shortly. It's possible that Bayern go down another direction. I mean, it's a complicated club, yeah, with a big board, with lots of different opinions and interests there, and all the sponsors get involved in these decisions, and so on and so forth. So it's possible it doesn't happen. But my last question to you really would be, is your sense that he really wants to leave Burnley this summer? That if a Brighton opportunity comes up, the Bayern doesn't, the Brighton does, he'd go to Brighton. If the Brentford comes up, he'd maybe go to Brentford. Or if something Chelsea happened, you know, is his aim not to be in the Championship and to be in a higher level than that?
Yes. The answer is yes. If he can be in another level than the Championship next year, he will force to get and to do it, because he knows how difficult it was to make this championship at 46 clubs, and this is not easy to work with, to get also a transfer window who will not be easy. A lot of players will go out. Will go out. I saw also a question on the chat about what's going on with Manuel Benson. Manuel Besson is going to leave surely this summer. This is not a surprise for everyone, because he will maybe try to get
Zaroury too, you think?
Sorry?
Zaroury as well, you think?
Zaroury, of course. Zaroury, his agent is still seeking for the moment, so it's very probable. And Al-Dakhil is going to stay. I truly believe that Al-Dakhil is not going to leave. For all the Belgians, Mike Trezor is going to stay also. Maybe if there is an opportunity, then I know a bit his entourage and so on. They will be maybe interested to talk about the interest. But for the moment, it's absolutely not the same thing. You know, it's all about energy. The energy where Kompany came from the Championship, building another story, creating a story, and then having the moment that he got, the personalization that he got, all the mediatic area, sun, all the sun on him that he got on the Premier League, and being conscious that he could be back. It's very difficult for someone who has always been at the top. This is only what I can say.
Sasha, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Really appreciate your time. Keep up the great work, keeping us all informed through your contacts and everything. It's really appreciated. And we look forward to having you on from the BOL end sometime in the near future as well.
It's a big pleasure. Thank you very much, everyone. You know how much I love Burnley, so I wish you all the best, and I hope we can discuss about better things or more beautiful things for the rest of the next season with big Belgium talent, or of our friends Al-Dakhil shining and so on.
Okay, let's look forward to it. Thanks again, Sasha. All the best.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Excellent. And as Sasha departs, Matt's been waiting. Matt, we had Matt and then lost Matt. There we go. We're going to add him to the stage again. He's been waiting very patiently in our virtual green room. Matt Ford, German football expert, worked for the likes of Deutsche Welle and The Guardian and the I paper. And I should mention as well, long-suffering Manchester United fanzine writer as well. Matt, how are we, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks. Cheers for reminding me of that extra bit at the end. Another deadline coming up for that one, but see how it goes on Saturday, won't we?
Yeah, I mean, we have at least had a worse season than you guys have, although I guess it's all kind of
that is fair. That is fair. Yeah,
all relative, isn't it? You've just been listening to Sasha there, and yeah. You know, it sounds like it may not be Bayern, but ultimately Vincent Kompany's going to go at some point. But I'm just interested in what the German reaction has been to this, because it was we kind of dismissed it as, you know, chip paper talk, but then kind of Sky in Germany started talking about it. I guess this isn't something you thought was going to come across your your kind of agenda in the last couple of days when you were sitting down and working out what you were going to write about this week?
Yeah, absolutely came out of the blue. But then again, after a couple of minutes, it occurred to me that at this stage in Bayern Munich's search for a replacement for Thomas Tuchel, any idea they come up with is going to be somewhat out of the blue. This isn't a plan, or wouldn't be a plan A or a plan B. I've worked it out; it would be a plan K. Yeah, I think if we're being
exactly what Sasha said earlier.
This will literally be a plan K. Xavi Alonso, top of that list, decided to stay at Bayer Leverkusen. Julian Nagelsmann opted to stay with the German national team. Jurgen Klopp opted for a sabbatical. Ralf Rangnick was very, very close to taking over, and then ultimately wasn't given the guarantees he needed and opted to stay with the Austrian national team, where he's been doing a fantastic job. There was a mooted return for Hansi Flick, which was quickly blown out of the water. Unai Emery was mentioned, albeit probably more down to his own agent rather than Bayern Munich's own approaches, but nevertheless continuing with Aston Villa. Erik ten Hag was mentioned. Even the idea of a potential swap deal with Manchester United for Thomas Tuchel. Tuchel himself was also an option, having been sacked back in February. This is when they got to. This is option. Look at my list now. This is option I by my calculations. Thomas Tuchel was brought back in for talks. Will you actually stay? Obviously, by this point, of course, Thomas Tuchel had, despite having become the first Bayern coach in 12 years not to win the Bundesliga, had got them within an inch, from a Bayern point of view, a dodgy VAR offside decision against Real Madrid of a Champions League final. It actually seemed, to all intents and purposes, that Tuchel would actually stay after all that. But no, that wasn't one either. De Zerbi was very briefly mentioned over the weekend when the Brighton news broke. This was then denied by the director of sport at Bayern, Max Eberl, who said no, the successor won't be Italian. So that had people scrambling around, ticking more names off lists. And then, yeah, like you said this morning or this afternoon, when Greavesy mentioned Vincent Kompany, that was credit to you, Greavesy, the first I heard, and yeah, took me by surprise a little bit. But having looked at when you think about it, actually, no. I mean, this is where Bayern have been left. The decision to part ways with Thomas Tuchel back in February was made at a pretty strange time. Looking back, it was before the confirmation of Bayern's new director of sport, name I just mentioned, a fellow called Max Eberl, was briefly at Red Bull in Leipzig for a couple of years, but much better known in Germany for his long-time work at Borussia Mönchengladbach. However, he's from Munich. He's a Bavarian. He's never really made any bones about his dream of going back to his big hometown club, Bayern Munich. But the decision to sack Tuchel was made before Eberl actually got his feet under the table. So that was strange timing, which is one of the reasons why the talks were renewed with Tuchel recently, given that obviously they were no longer being led by, I suppose, the ancien regime at Bayern, but more the new setup under Eberl, but obviously didn't come to fruition. Like you said, like Sasha sort of confirmed as well, these are very much only rumours. It is only paper talk, although it does seem that the contact has been made. Were Kompany or someone of Vincent Kompany's ilk to come to Bayern Munich, yeah, I hope that gives you some sort of idea of the club context and the management situation that he'd be coming into.
Are you surprised then? I mean, Sasha touched upon it, and a lot of Burnley fans, have been asking about this. He demands total control. I mean, he is a control freak in terms of, his company, a company called Mud Analytics, runs the recruitment department, for what we understand. They're the ones who go out the talent spotting and doing all this, and that in itself is what it is. He won't get anywhere near that control at Bayern Munich. So it almost feels like a bit of a misfit marriage. I mean, Bayern are desperate, although Pochettino could come into the reckoning perhaps now he's leaving Chelsea. But from Kompany's point of view, again, it feels like a marriage of convenience that he's only going to hit the rocks in November when Bayern aren't top of the Bundesliga, you'd think. Or am I kind of overcomplicating that thinking?
No, that idea of control is absolutely one. The current situation at Bayern Munich is one massive, internal civil war for power and control of the club. Control was one of the reasons, or one of the major reasons, why Ralf Rangnick eventually turned the job down, to that coming very close. Another figure who, in all his roles in German football, and they've been very prominent and successful roles in German football, despite what his reputation from 6-7 months at Manchester United might have been. His reputation in Germany, or in the German-speaking world, and now with the Austrian national team, remains very much intact as an extremely competent and successful manager. And a manager in the German sense, not as a head coach, but as a sporting director, as a functionary, an official, a squad builder, a transfer dealer, behind the scenes. He would have also demanded similar guarantees from Bayern Munich, which were never ever going to come, not in a club which, like I said, has already just appointed a new director of sport, which would be Ralf Rangnick's normal job, in Max Eber, but also a new sporting director. And I know it sounds similar, but there's a key difference in German football. Director of sport who will be sat on the board, and the sporting director who will be a little bit below, more of a squad builder, transfer sort of figure. A man by the name of Christoph Freund, formerly of Red Bull Salzburg. So in effect, you've already got two sporting directors of sport with those portfolios already in the club. You wouldn't have another one in Ralf Rangnick. Similarly, that's always going to pose an issue for any manager, regardless of nationality, coming from a Premier League / English football environment, where, as you've been saying, at Burnley, he has that role as a manager in the English sense, which is very much one of uniting various roles together. You're not just seen as the head coach doing the sessions on the training pitch and picking the lineup. You're very much involved in squad planning, transfers, negotiations, salaries, contract extensions, etc. And you're representing the club on a socio-political level as well towards the outside. If that's something that Vincent Kompany has decided that he likes and he can work within, he likes having that control in an English environment, that would be something that I think he would potentially struggle with in a German environment, and especially this environment at Bayern Munich, where they're already still embroiled in a massive power struggle. Not least of all the fact that this is, as I mentioned, the new roles given to Christoph Freund and Max Eber. This is very much like a second attempt for Bayern in recent years to move on from that old guard of the former club president Uli Hoeneß and the former CEO Karl-Heinz Rummenigge. This dynamic duo who absolutely dominated Bayern Munich and indeed German and European football for the best part of 10, 15 years. Those two have now both moved on. They were originally replaced by Oliver Kahn as the new CEO and Hasan Salihamidzic, the former Bayern striker, as sporting director. That didn't work out. The two of them were sacked on the final day of last season, about 2 minutes after Bayern had won their 11th straight title. That's how ruthless this football club are, which has led to a bit of an unofficial return to power for Rummenigge and Hoeneß in the background, even though they're only on the supervisory board now. But there's a saying around Munich that absolutely nothing happens at Bayern without a thumbs up or a thumbs down from Uli Hoeneß, sat in his villa on the Lake Tegernsee on the edge of town, sipping a nice Heller's beer or whatever his tipple is. You've got all these influences coming in around this club, and that's what's created this vacuum in the position of head coach, that's what Vincent Kompany will be coming into. So purely on that level of how much control would he have? Would he have all the control he wants? Purely through that lens,
Doesn't sound like it, to be honest, Matt.
I think it'd be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question I'd have is about the fans at Bayern, yeah, where if you've got somebody who's just relegated a team with 5 wins out of 38 games from the Premier League, who has no experience of coaching a Champions League level team, really, but who's just failed in his main purpose this season. How are the fans at Bayern going to react to that? Because I'd imagine, other people, maybe a Brentford or a Brighton fan will say, "Oh, he did really well in the Championship." I can't imagine that cuts much sense with Bayern Munich fans. So how do you expect they'd react if Kompany did get the job?
I get the impression that particularly among Bayern Munich's match-going hardcore, I think they'll be relatively open to it, and that's because there is skepticism and criticism of this continuing influence and role of the former president Uli Hoeneß. Like I said, that's a very, very difficult thing for Bayern to get their heads around. Very much identity crisis, because they all accept that without Uli Hoeneß, there is no modern Bayern Munich. It's very much, as much as it on paper belongs to the members and the fans, the power very much resides with Uli Hoeneß. So there's a great gratitude, massive respect, massive reverence almost for Uli Hoeneß. However, there's also criticism. And here's an example of that. Large parts of last season, or the season just finishing, were interrupted in Germany by these protests against a private equity investor in the Bundesliga, which it's a different topic, but the fans, in short, weren't having it and disrupted games by launching tennis balls on the pitch all the time. Uli Hoeneß then came out with a comment that Bayern Munich's fans, by doing that, cost them a result away at Bochum, which, from the fans' point of view, is absolute nonsense, particularly given the season that Bayern were playing in the league. They hardly needed, it wasn't tennis balls that were chipping them up. So then when they ended up throwing away, losing the league title to Bayer Leverkusen, there was this comment on a banner behind the goal in Munich, referring to that and referring to an argument years ago where the fans had complained about ticket prices and a bad atmosphere, and Uli Hoeneß had told them, "You're responsible for the effing atmosphere." So they had a banner saying to Hoeneß, "No, you're responsible for the football, not us." So there is absolutely, he's not free of criticism, Uli Hoeneß. So I do get the sense that there would certainly be an element of Bayern Munich support who would be open to something new, like I said, to this fresh change, to this transition away from the old guard of Rummenigge and Hoeneß taking place and moving on with Max Eberl as director of sport and Christoph Freund as sporting director. It's, in my opinion, also something that I think Bayern Munich need to do. They need to give their two new powerful men in the club control. They need to give them trust, confidence, and Eberl and Freund, I think, are expected now to try and stamp their authority on this club, the authority that they have by virtue of their position, not the authority that Hoeneß and Rummenigge have by virtue of their albeit illustrious past. So if you were to look at the recruitment of a head coach, the like of which Vincent Kompany, that would certainly, in my opinion, be an example of thinking outside the box, thinking a bit more progressively, a bit more creatively than simply looking to the managerial merry-go-round of people who may or may not have some form of connection to Bayern Munich. Potential other options of that ilk would be the coach who's currently just got St. Pauli promoted from Division 2 to the Bundesliga, Fabian Hürzeler. The coach who's just left Mainz, actually, although it didn't go too well at the end, Bo Svensson. I think there are various options of that ilk, and I would put Vincent Kompany in that sort of list. It would certainly be different, be creative, be something new, and yeah, he would also tick some boxes for Bayern as well. He speaks German. That's a massive plus point in Munich. Although, as I understand it, the language in the dressing room is English. But it's certainly expected that a Bayern Munich coach can communicate to the media and to the supporters in German. Exceptions are made. Carlo Ancelotti, Pep Guardiola weren't brilliant. People laugh at Louis van Gaal's German back in the day, but he was all right in the end. Vincent Kompany would tick that box. Solid possession-based football in the 4-2-3-1. That's very, very Bayern Munich. So yeah, there are things that speak to that. Bundesliga experience with Hamburg, a couple of years. Whether you really clarify that as being someone who knows the Bundesliga, or would you say it's just someone who was there for a couple of years, 30 odd appearances for Hamburg? Maybe not. It'd be an interesting example of Bayern thinking outside the box.
Yeah, and I think sometimes clubs need that. I mean, we got it with Vincent when we went from Dyche to Kompany, and Kompany admitted he had no idea about the Championship. He was basically learning it as he went along, and I think that was evident in his first 10 games where we really struggled to kind of put anything results wise together. If he was to get the Bayern job, what kind of, I mean, somebody has pointed out on the chat that, we don't tend to get Bayern managers don't tend to get much time in the job. And, there is a bit of a turnover and a bit of a churn by and large. How much time would he get to implement his system? Because obviously, he's tried it at Burnley with his signings and it's not worked. He's essentially going to be walking into a dressing room, which is probably more of his ilk in terms of skill set. How long would he get before the Bayern fans started getting the white hankies out? If it was in Spain, that's what happened. But I'm not quite sure what the German equivalent is, throwing pretzels at him perhaps. But how long would he get to kind of prove that he was the man to drive Bayern forward?
But waving cowbells or lederhosen around, something like that in Bavaria. The issue with time, that's one of the major issues that put Thomas Tuchel off in the end. It's him that broke off the talks because I think he would have been prepared to stay on, but he wanted a contract extension of 2 to 3 years, going towards 2026, 2027, maybe even beyond. Bayern were only prepared to offer him, by all accounts, one more year until summer 2025, because that's when they anticipate maybe that either Jurgen Klopp will be prepared to return to football, Xavi Alonso would be prepared to leave Bayer Leverkusen, perhaps even if Germany have another bad tournament this summer, that Julian Nagelsmann would actually be available again. So they're very much playing for time with this in this 1 year window. Thomas Tuchel wasn't having that. He wanted more trust than that. I think that would have been a similar issue for Ralf Rangnick as well. Another big elephant in the room for Bayern and for someone like Vincent Kompany, if he were to go there, and if he were concerned about how much time he would get, is the Champions League final 2025 on the horizon. Do you know where that's taking place?
I presume it's the Allianz, is it? The Allianz Arena?
Yeah, Munich for the first time since 2012. Don't underestimate how obsessed Bayern Munich are with that, particularly after what happened in 2012 when they were beaten at the Allianz Arena by Chelsea. So this date has been on the horizon in Munich for the past few years, ever since it was confirmed. This is what they're very much aiming for. They absolutely are determined to be in that European Cup final in 2025 at home. It's one of the reasons they wanted to keep Thomas Tuchel, because he's proven this year, as in previous years with Chelsea as well, and PSG to an extent, how good he can, how good he masters this competition. Got them within a whisker of a Champions League final again this year. So that's another thing that someone like Vincent Kompany would be confronted with in Munich. First of all, an expectation and a demand to get to that Champions League final at home in May, June, whenever it is, 2025, and also a realization that perhaps this would be limited, success or not, to whoever would then be on the managerial market come summer 2025. That would be another thing that someone like Kompany would have to negotiate, talk about, and work out with the various power structures at Bayern. It's a very, very complicated system and structure in Munich currently.
Definitely. Justin, I think you've got a last question before we let Matt go.
Just one last one from me, touching on something that Sasha was talking about, which kind of ties into what we were just saying about that sort of year-long window that Bayern might be looking at. I'm just wondering whether you think there's possibility that there might be a bit of a Pep factor involved in this. I mean, Pep said that he fully expects Vincent Kompany to take over at City at some point in the future, and this, it seems unlikely that getting promoted out of the Championship is going to make that a possibility at the end of next season. But a decent season with Bayern Munich could pave the way to that scenario. I just wonder if you think that Pep might have a hand in this. Does he still have any influence at Bayern? He had a successful period there. I mean, if Vincent gets a good reference from Pep, surely that makes people sit up and listen, doesn't it?
Certainly, yeah, it certainly would. I wouldn't go so far as to say that Pep Guardiola still has any influence at Bayern Munich. Certainly not. Despite the relative success that he had at Bayern, and despite the influence that he had on Bayern, as he has influence on teams wherever he's been, it wasn't to be underestimated. There were Bundesliga titles. However, there were also 3 Champions League semi-final defeats. And like I said, Bayern Munich are a club who, like Barcelona and Real Madrid and the rest of them, define themselves by Champions League semi-finals and finals. Guardiola's legacy at Bayern Munich is seen as mixed. Nevertheless, even from a non-Bayern point of view, of course, anybody who comes with the recommendation of a Pep Guardiola is going to be of interest. Ironically, actually, the coach who people around Bayern, even certain players, including Thomas Müller, refer to and look back to the most. And I've heard Bastian Schweinsteiger say this as well. It's not Pep Guardiola, but Louis van Gaal, believe it or not. So very much more that sort of quite dominating, aggressive possession style, rather than perhaps the more intricate, stereotypically tiki-taka style of a Pep Guardiola. Nevertheless, I mean, people will be. I was interested to hear that Sasha saying that Max Eberl, the director of sport, knows Vincent Kompany. I think that's interesting. So he'll be aware of the recommendations. He'll be aware of opinions on Vincent Kompany. And like I said, I think bringing someone like him in, if you're looking at it purely positively, would be an example of Bayern thinking outside the box, which may be seen as necessary in the situation that they're in. On the other hand, clearly it's a risk, but then again, like we said, it's a plan K at this point.
Thanks for that. Simon, back to you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much indeed, Matt. Greavesy.
Yeah, just a big thanks to you, Matt, for coming on. And I realise kind of we've kind of dragged you away from whatever else you would be doing on a wonderful Tuesday night in Germany. So thank you very much for your time, mate. Good to see you. And maybe we'll chat again once Vincent's holding up the Bayern shirt next to Max Eberl at the Allianz in a week or so's time.
Yeah, and if not, until then, you can enjoy a pint of that Dortmunder Union beer at the craft beer place near the station.
Oh, the Bridge Beer House, yeah.
Definitely.
And we'll see you there next season, hopefully for a cup game or two, maybe.
Nice one, mate. Take care, everyone.
Cheers, Matt.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Right, there's plenty to get into there. Now we're going to have a discussion amongst ourselves, reflecting really on those 2 interviews. Tremendous detail there from Matt about that situation at Bayern Munich. It really doesn't sound like the place where he's going to walk in and get to do what he wants to do, does it? But Sasha dropping a few bombs in there towards the end as he walked out, just chucking a bye-bye Benson and a bye-bye Zarori in on his way out of the door, which shouldn't be a shock, really, but it's just to hear it mentioned like that. And seemingly convinced that Kompany wants to leave. So we haven't had a chance yet to really get into our sort of feelings about this whole thing. I mean, Woody, how do you feel about this whole business of Kompany now seemingly heading for the exit door?
Well, even though there's still like an element of conjecture there, isn't there? It seems to be more certain that his head's been turned. It was always going to be turned, and that he's been managing his CV more than he's been managing his team, especially over the past year. And yeah, there's a case there. Of course, he's going to go on to bigger and better things. But we've been told about this project, and he's left us with this mess to clean up over this particular last year. And now it's one of those, isn't it? You'd probably want him to go as opposed to him to stay purely and simply because his head is being turned and his head's not necessarily in the game, or it doesn't appear that that's the case. So continuity planning should probably be assumed, I would have thought.
Yeah, I mean, Justin, we talked and laugh about this term project all the time, but if this were like a project in a house, you were bringing someone in, with a project to redevelop your house, he's sort of come in and sort of smashed up the bedroom and bathroom and then wandered down the street to start on somebody else's house, hasn't he?
Well, not yet. That is a perfect analogy to what it would be if it did. If it did,
yeah, fair enough.
These cliches are cliches for a reason. It's usually because they're true. There's no smoke without fire, is there? And I think this sort of flurry of speculative suggestions of all these different clubs being named in connection with Vincent Kompany, the people like Sasha and the rest of them, they don't make this stuff up, do they? They hear things on the grapevine and they transmit that to us.
Yeah.
So something's going on behind the scenes there, and Sasha does seem very confident that the Kompany has decided to call time on his time at Burnley and has very, very much got the feelers out, see what's out there and what's available to him. I think we were all like absolutely stunned and astonished yesterday with the Bayern Munich link, which seemed to make absolutely zero sense whatsoever. I think earlier on in the week when we did our final podcast of the season, we kind of touched upon this, didn't we? It was like, would he want to go? Well, he's got unfinished business. So the top managers don't want to leave unfinished business. They want to leave places on a high if they have to leave at all. But then again, who, given his record this season, who would want him? It's very difficult to put your finger on what Bayern Munich board might look at Vincent Kompany and say, yeah, this is the guy for us. This is the guy to right the wrongs of this last season, where they've obviously failed to win the title and win, get to the Champions League final. Where does Vincent Kompany, where on his record does it show that he's capable of achieving those kinds of things? I don't know. I'm not sure. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, unless the stories come from somebody close to Kompany who wants to put ideas in people's heads.
Greavesy, we've had 24 hours pretty much to make sense in our heads of this Bayern story and everything else, and what Sasha's talked about as well. How do you see it?
Yeah, it still feels like some weird fever dream, doesn't it? I know it's been warm here over the weekend, but it just felt like kind of slightly strange. But there were a couple of things that I don't know if I was shocked by them or it just confirmed. We knew the relationship between Pace and Kompany was so off kilter, that it is that kind of almost weird obsession, if you will, with Kompany. And too much respect is what Sasha described it as. And that isn't the kind of relationship you ever want between chairman and manager, because you essentially put the manager on the pedestal, and it's very difficult then to kind of get him to climb down, isn't it? Yeah. What was interesting is the search for an assistant manager. Now, I was told that there was some doubt over whether Craig Bellamy would still be here next year. And I don't mean that in a, he'll go with Vincent Kompany. I mean that in a kind of, perhaps Bellamy was looking for a way out of Burnley this year, regardless of whether Kompany stayed or left. So maybe some of that is the thinking. Maybe it was what we've discussed several times about getting an experienced head into that system, because at the minute, Kompany's kind of answer is, we've just got to work harder. We've got to work harder and we've got to work longer. And actually, I was talking to somebody who works in, works in coaching and works in kind of psychology. And they were saying that is the misconception that kind of misguided leaders often have, is that if you're not working efficiently, you just got to work harder. But it's not about working harder. So maybe the search for an assistant manager was, Pace had agreed with Kompany that they would bring somebody else in and they would essentially be that, I don't know if it's a no man, but that kind of would be the person who would challenge Vince's thinking.
Yeah, but just interrupting there, just because it came into my head, right? So that conversation is going, that all makes perfect sense. And in fact, we've said a million times on this podcast, he should bring in an old head and all that kind of stuff, right? So presumably he consults with Kompany about that. Pace says to Kompany, what do you think? We'll bring someone in, we'll spend some money, we'll bring in somebody to help you, whatever. And if they've gone looking, then presumably Kompany said yes. But in the meantime, Kompany's preparing to leave and go somewhere else.
Yeah, and that was the second point I was going to make, is that I cannot believe that Pace is so blinded by his love for this man, Vincent Kompany, that he doesn't sense that anything is wrong and that, all is rosy in the garden. That I was genuinely shocked when I asked Sasha, is it a case of Pace not believing that there was actually going to ever be a point where Kompany would leave this summer? And I find that absolutely incredible. We know that some of that regime is away with the fairies with some of the ideas that they've been trying to enforce on match days and things. But to have a chairman who probably very genuinely, when he tweeted the Pinocchio gif at Sasha and the gif where he said, this is what happens when you let children play on Twitter, I think that's probably genuinely now because Pace had no idea that Vincent Kompany would even.
They're always the last to know, aren't they?
It isn't it? 20 ways to leave your lover or whatever. I mean, he is kind of the whole situation now, after Pace was very kind of like, very kind of, bullish with Sasha last week. Actually, it's now looks like Pace has been caught with his pants down and that he actually had no bloody idea that Kompany may even be thinking about leaving. And that worries me slightly because, it's not the, it doesn't give me the confidence that decisions will be made. And we will end. I did promise some of that. We would end with our picks at the end of the show. But somebody said, don't forget Pace lined up VK before potting Dyche. I don't think they did. If you look at that documentary, Pace didn't even know who Vincent Kompany was. He admitted as such. I tweeted him. I've said this before. I think I'm responsible for Vincent Kompany coming into Burnley, so I apologise for the heartache we're all going to go through. But I just think it is a bonkers situation for the chairman of a club to be so blinded by his admiration and love for his manager that he doesn't pick up on the sense that he's not happy and might leave. And he's down at the training ground very often. He goes down to the training ground and works in the training ground. So is he walking around with his eyes closed?
Kompany very famously says that he refuses to discuss his future, though, doesn't he? Maybe that extends to discussing it with the chairman as well. That would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it?
I mean, it does. It does lead you into that sort of Owen Coyle territory a little bit, this, doesn't it? Because no, it does in the sense that, well, Owen Coyle never relegated us, actually. But anyway, but you in the sense, the subterfuge that's involved in it and that sort of feeling of a little bit of deceit there, because you're right. Alan Pace is going down to Gawthorpe every day or regularly. They're talking to him. He goes, we've seen in the documentary, he goes into board meetings and all that kind of stuff. He's obviously got a really good poker face, hasn't he? Because he comes in and he's like talking about his 5-year plan while you know, it sounds like his agent's putting out feelers to Brighton, Brentford, or wherever. I mean, with that kind of stuff going on, and it does, as Sasha said, it goes on all the time in football, you know, to your question, Justin. But with that kind of feeling, if Pace is feeling totally betrayed by all this going on, is there a way back, actually? I mean, that's the big question. Two parts to it. Is there a way back? And would you want there to be a way back, Justin?
Well, it's all speculation and conjecture, isn't it? Sasha, who's plugged into these things, is convinced there that Vincent wants to leave. And I think when that trust is broken between manager and chairman, it's very difficult to repair it. You know, it's difficult for the chairman to acquiesce to a manager's wants and needs if he doesn't feel confident that manager is going to stick around to see that you know whatever's planned and whatever's financed through. I mean, like, as you say, Simon, he's talked about his company's talked about his 5-year plan, and you know, my view of it is he's very, very much in the middle of something rather than at the end of it. So for him to walk away from it now would be an enormous disappointment on that level. But like you say, if he has, you know, when I play Football Manager, if I apply for another manager's job, I get potted immediately by my chairman. There's no coming back from it. And as we know, Football Manager is a very accurate representation of how things go on in the real world. Apart from my success with Burnley, having won the Champions League 4 seasons in a row, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But even so, you've got to show loyalty to your club, haven't you? You've got to fulfill your contract. You've got, when you enter it into a project, which companies clearly very invested in and bought into, you got to see it through to the end. And if you don't, then I consider that to be a bit of a stain on your reputation.
I think we'd all be quite happy though if Kompany left and said that Bayern Munich were 10 years ahead of Burnley, and we followed Bayern Munich 10 year path. But let's be, if we're going to throw the Coyle references there, yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on though. I think it's I think. How does the chairman ever rebuild the trust and loosen the purse strings again, which is what we're going to, as somebody's pointed out, we've got a huge squad. We need to kind of cut it or sort it. But there was a question that Thomas said, will be interesting to know what people's thoughts on his legacy will be if he leaves. Now, I'm going to throw to Woody because at the minute on social media, everyone seems to be wanting Woody's opinions on these things. And he may say something that we can turn into a T-shirt. So how would you assess Kompany's legacy if it was one season of absolute elation and one season of absolute dog shit?
Well, it's a double asterisk then, isn't it? It then becomes, well, was he a little bit lucky with the championship? Is that something that just kind of happened because once we got to the promised land, it really genuinely went to shit? And let's not pretend that he's going to have that, kind of patience at the likes of a Bayern Munich or a bigger club. There's literally no chance of him lasting till Christmas if he has one of his, quarters to a third of a season dicking about with a ridiculous amount of 1-1s and not knowing who his fullbacks are and not knowing who his keepers are, etc. But I think for me, and I think once it kind of starts to sink in and we understand the ramifications of all of this, because we've still got to pick it apart a little bit. Let's not jump on him, too soon. But it's one of those whereby I think his legacy, I don't think he'll necessarily, I think it'll be tarnished. Let's put it that way. I think it will be tarnished.
Here's a question. How many players does he take with him if he goes to Bayern?
From us?
Are we looking at Odegaard, Kane, Koleosho frontline at Bayern Munich? I don't think so. No. If he goes to Brighton, I could see him taking a couple of youngsters, and if he goes to Brentford, he probably even more so. But not
Roche at the back for Bayern.
Well, Bayern would be good, wouldn't he?
He might swoop in for Matson. He's still up for grabs, I think.
Yeah.
And that's proven. He's proven himself.
Oh, they're flying in now. The suggestions that he should take Weghorst with him to.
And our friend E. Steve, who probably would be quite good in the Bundesliga, he seems to fit that kind of continental profile, doesn't he? But
yeah, I mean, the weird thing here is I'm actually finding myself feeling sorry for Alan Pace, which is not an emotion I expected to go through on a podcast, and because
you did tell Sasha before we started recording that he's very hot in Miami. I'm guessing we're kind of somewhere near the hottest part of the day. So
it is a bit on the warm, and I turn my aircon off when we record because it makes a right racket. But no, I do feel in a way, if you think about it, right, he's totally backed Vincent Kompany, right? We can debate and will do how that money is sourced and where it's come from and how risky it is and stuff. But they've still gone out and found that money and given it Vincent Kompany to build a team and said, yeah, if you think that Trezor guy's a 15 million superstar, Vincent, we're with you. And then at the end of the year, if he turns around and like Mike, not only Mike Trezor, but a lot of these gambles haven't worked, and he turns around and goes, yeah, I mean, Sasha said one thing that grated me a little bit, his attitude might be, I've given it my best and I've taken you as far as I can go. No, that's your team, Kompany. You built that team.
Yeah.
You completely built that team. You destroyed the team you had before, ignored a lot of players, built your own team, spent, whatever it is, 100 and whatever, and then you're going to walk away from it. I think, like you said, Justin, we should, keep a degree of calm and reflect on the fact that this hasn't happened yet and that it's talking about, but it's just talk. But if he does that, I think his legacy, to answer your question, Greavesy, I think his legacy is gone. I think that credit in the bank business, whether he stays after this, that's gone. But his legacy, I don't think he'll be remembered fondly for that championship season if he walks out and leaves us with a squad of 45 players to sort out like this.
And the other thing to remember, of course, is a lot of these players that were likely only here because of him. How would they reflect on being sort of deserted at this point? Do we then have a rash of transfer requests going? I came in to play for Vincent Kompany, not for Burnley. I don't know. I don't know whether that would happen or not, but it's certainly got to be a factor that you've got to.
Yeah. And what happens with Mud Analytics?
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like there's a place for Mud Analytics at Bayern, given the fact that they've got a director of sport and a sporting director. So that, I think that is the consideration. I think there's an air of desperation from Bayern, as it sounds like. Matt rattled off all the kind of public and kind of private links with various managers. But Mud Analytics doesn't get an in at Bayern, surely. Bayern aren't looking for some 3 million quid, 90 minutes in La Liga kid, are they really? Let's be honest, it's not the Bayern way of doing it. I mean, they signed Eric Dyer in January. They're looking for building teams with older players. And is that a consideration? I think I was talking to somebody in terms of, does Kompany have a problem with older pros being in the dressing room with older pros? So he's walking into a dressing room with not older than him, but established pros. So is that an issue? So I do think if he does go to Bayern, it will be that marriage of convenience, marriage of inconvenience. Certainly the odd couple, isn't it? If you think about it.
Oh, I'm talking about marriage. I mean, do you remember when he said he was coming to Burnley because his wife wanted to live in the northwest of England? That's gone out of the window pretty quickly, hasn't it?
That's very true.
Yeah.
But, it's football. People, we said this before, people come out with stuff all the time. They really do. Here's a good one that's just come in. At least we've got AI Scout app to help us find that £100 million player to pay our debts back when we're back in League One. Thank God for that. Yeah.
Well, every cloud,
We should discuss who we think before we wrap up. We should discuss who our choice for manager would be. Should we? So let's fast forward. I mean, it looks like Vincent's on his way. So let's have a serious consideration. I can go first while you're thinking.
Go for it. You obviously thought about this.
I have. You know what I've got a wall chart. I'm scribbling
He's
on
got a short. It's not just one. He's got a short list.
You've got to draw up a short list, and I'm thinking.
Sure, though it didn't happen. Yeah.
Will Still, right? Now, a lot of people on Twitter have said, no, thanks, definitely not. Will Still, I get it. He's young, even younger than Kompany, a hell of a lot younger than any of us lot. Done all right in Ligue 1, not great. And certainly, when he agreed by mutual consent to leave Stade Rome, they'd not, won winning 14. But again, would he get he's multilingual, which I think helps with the squad that we've got. He's got a good record against big teams. Very unfashionable club in France, or certainly unfashionable these days. So he would be one. And then the other one is David Ancelotti, which is my left field option. And I'm thinking ambitious. And if I'm Pace, I'm thinking, you can't replace Vincent Kompany with Chris Wilder. Can you? Let's be honest. If we go
Wilder's not appearing anywhere. That's
he's on nobody's list.
But then I'm thinking, purely because of the most beautiful way that Matt pronounces his name, and I won't do it justice, Ralf Rangnick. I'm going to say it in a very northern voice, but he says Ralf Rangnick in a very, in that German accent, which is fantastic. Now, I had a conversation with Matt, and I went, I don't get this fella. He's, everyone bangs on about how brilliant he is, but I don't get him when he was at Man United. Do you go for someone like that?
What, Ragnick?
No.
Listen,
no.
I'm being. I mean, Simon. The other night on the WhatsApp, we were discussing the virtues of Claude Puel. I mean, he's got to be a better option than Claude Puel.
Rangnick.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, bear in mind that Bayern Munich were talking to him a couple of weeks ago, and Vincent Kompany now fits their profile. It's difficult for me to see much of a parallel between those two characters, apart from they both fucked it up in the Premier League. So, maybe who knows? I don't know. The one thing that I'm certain of is whoever it is going to be is going to have to still buy into this project. They're going to come to a club that the first team squad is more or less a development squad, isn't it? And it is going to be that for the foreseeable future, certainly for the coming season, especially given who's leaving the playing staff this season. It's going to be, our average age is going to be about 18, isn't it, over this coming season? So they're going to have to buy into that. So who's out there who's got a reputation for bringing young players through and developing them and doing the sort of thing doing the job that Alan Pace is going to need doing, which is, making a team out of this setup and finding that, £100 million player. Who is it? I don't know. I don't know of anybody who fits that profile. Who's
Cooper.
Steve Cooper, yeah.
Steve Cooper.
A lot of people
with England youth.
Yeah. I think the manager or the team that impressed me most last season was Hull, and I've still no idea how they didn't spank us twice. So I would like to give a little shout out to Rossignol, even though it sounds like he's going to go to Brighton. But if you could, then I would go for Steve Cooper, I think.
Yeah, Cooper's an interesting one, isn't he? Yeah, I mean the only one of the sort of big names that I've seen flown out there that does sort of makes me at least curious about it is Solskjaer. I think.
That's true.
Yeah,
he worked well with young players at United, and I think what's happened since at United with how awful they were under Rangnick and how bad they've been under Ten Hag has sort of put a little bit of perspective on what Solskjaer did there. They played some pretty decent football, and they went toe-to-toe with teams like City and Liverpool at times. They had some nightmares against them as well. But it's counter-attacking football with wingers is the way Solskjaer plays. I can see how you could adjust this squad to play that way with Koleosho and Odegaard, instead of, the players he had at United. He played that sort of style of football. So whether he'd fancy it or not, I don't know. But I'm not saying I'm not launching a campaign for Solskjaer to become manager. But out of those names that have been thrown out there,
I think that's a good call. I think he was doing as I said on our WhatsApp group when his name cropped up before. I think he was making some progress at United, and he seemed to be taking him in a decent direction until he was completely banjoed by them bringing Ronaldo back, which sort of screwed everything up. And I think that was the beginning of the end for him. But like you say, he was the reserve team manager at United for a few years, and so he has got that experience of bringing, trying to bring young players through in that kind of environment. So, yeah, I think that's quite a good call.
I've got one for you. Somebody's worked with young players, young talent, had success with them at national team level. Eddie Boothroyd.
Oh.
Genuinely not serious. I should just point that out.
No. But
I've just got a conversation about Ralph Rangnick, but I'm not serious about Eddie Boothroyd. But I thought I'd lighten the mood a little bit with the Eddie Boothroyd.
Well, Chris isn't able to join us tonight due to his family commitments. But if he was here, who do we
go and die? Chris is going to go and die.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there are rumours though. There are rumours that he's on his way from Everton.
It certainly won't be back down. I don't even know what motorway. M56, M6, back to Burnley. I don't think. Although he has still got I think he's still got a flat in Worley. I think he bought a flat just before he left. He was out in Worley last weekend. The middle of last week for Curry.
Perhaps now Alan Pace has been burned by the most beautiful girl in the village. Perhaps he'll lower his sights a little bit, and Dash might be back in with a shout.
Yeah.
Coutinho's first name on team sheet every week if he is.
Somebody's suggesting Bob Bradley and Jesse Marsh, and I think we should ban Jacob Claret.
Jesse Marsh just appointed last week as Canada national team coach, and I think I did send a message saying, I think Woody, you said it, didn't you? Bullet dodged.
Yes.
Little did we know what was to come in the following week. That we've gone an hour and 22 minutes here. I think that's a record for this podcast. I don't know if we'll be able to upload this. Will Spotify allow something?
Yeah, there's the right load of old shite on Spotify longer than this nonsense, so we'll be fine.
Well, we probably should wrap this up. Yeah. Any final thoughts we want?
No, just that if it does happen, it needs to happen quickly, doesn't it? One of the only silver lining around all this is it's bang on the end of the season. We've got a little bit of time to get something in place before pre-season might start. So the last thing we want is this lingering on. We want either company or the clubs to come out and say, no, it's not happening. He's staying here. Preparations are underway, or we want it to happen tomorrow so we can turn our heads and look the other way.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's got to be done. It's got to be over with soon. We don't want to be heading into pre-season territory without a manager.
Forever forward.
Better never started. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks very much indeed for joining us. I can see we've had a lot of numbers listening to us and watching us on YouTube and on Twitter. Sasha, some pretty big bombshells in there from Sasha. It is his reporting. It is his individual thing that he goes out there and does. And he's saying he thinks that regardless of what happens, Benson and Zarori are also heading out of the door at Turf Moor. Lots for us to discuss when we next come back on our regular podcast. But thank you very much indeed, everyone, for doing this. It's been great. Thanks to our guests, both of them, for coming on at short notice and giving us some really good insights into both ends of this potential deal. All the best, and up the Clarets.